It's time to present Scott DuPont to bring you another episode of Finance Your Movie with tips and strategies to help you get your money to tell your story. It's time!
Okay, another exciting episode. I'm here today this week with Terissa Kelton, a fellow actor producer. Welcome, Terissa.
Thanks for having me. Happy to be here.
So, Terissa, you're the co-owner and executive vice president of Rehab Entertainment, and we'll get into that a little bit. And you're originally from Texas, and
Right.
what fascinated me, which will be of great interest to our audience, is you starred in and produced several indie features when you were there in Austin, correct?
Right. Yes,
In fact, you did
absolutely.
like a run of them, like 3 or 4 movies in a row.
Yeah, I was on that same team for about 10 movies over a period of 5 years, and produced most of them, not all 10, but was kind of among the group. So I was seeing how it was all happening.
Now, did any of those you helped finance, or were you in that stage of it at all?
I did it in the capacity of when we would do like the GoFundMe's or the Indiegogos, the Seed and Sparks. I would definitely be part of the team that was pushing those, that was trying to come up with, the kind of content to create to, pull people in, and doing just the various kind of research on, what the best perks were to give at certain, price points and that kind of thing. I was never myself an investor. Um, and at that point, I wasn't talking directly to financiers per se. It was a lot more of the Indiegogo
Okay.
kind of approach at that point.
So if you can just give us an example of one of those films, because they were all, I'm guessing, under $1 million, what
Mhm.
kind of was the percentage or ratio of your Kickstarter, Indiegogo raise versus your equity raise? Like, did you raise $100,000 through donations and then 500,000 in cash?
Yeah, so a lot of the movies that I did were under 100K at that point. And we would do the Indiegogos, and those would go about 30 to 50. And then the producers and the owners of that company would go and try to get financing from, or equity financing from other ventures, using that, hey, we've already built up this amount of money and there's a lot of interest for it, and pulling them in that way.
Okay, excellent. And I see, by the way, congratulations on, I didn't realize, I kind of figured there were $200,000 to $500,000 movies
Hmm.
because I see they're distributed. They look like pretty high quality movies. So
Yeah.
you stretched the dollar there.
Yeah.
Um, there's been a lot of filmmakers who have successfully done that hybrid model
Hmm.
where you did, like I said, the crowdfunding and then the equity. Since you were more focused on the crowdfunding, what are some tips or advice for people either doing a hybrid or maybe just raising 50 or 60 to do a micro budget?
I think now, especially because when I was doing those, that was when they were kind of first coming out, those venues. But the model has been out there now for a while, and so the competition is fierce. And so I think it's like you really want to make sure that even the content that you're putting out to bring people in and to get them excited about the project and fund it has to be almost like up to par with the project itself that you're wanting to create. And I think I've seen in a lot of capacities, if you have a project that's utilizing like a new kind of technology, or like if you're utilizing Unreal, or you're utilizing even like an LED screen on a lower level, um, adding those kind of elements to your fundraiser is really beneficial, because people are like, oh, that looks like something new and exciting, and it's a new approach. And I think it just gets people kind of excited. It's like when the Mandalorian came out with those LED screens and everyone went crazy. Like what's happening out there in these bigger budgets, and how can you kind of attract people through, you know, different filmmaking styles and utilizing technology on a lower level, if that makes sense. And then, bringing in your cast and crew, I think the more people who are involved, who have great things to say, who seem excited about the project, that's just going to bring in
That momentum.
the momentum, and they're going to be more invested in it as well. And so they're going to share it with more people because they're like, hey, look at this, cool video I'm a part of, or this thing that I'm part of making. And you're just going to get more people looking at it, and hopefully more funders that way.
Yeah, and it's a lot of effort, right? I mean, it's not just like, hey, put up the page and hope for the best.
Exactly. And that's one of the biggest things, is like, it's almost as work intensive as making the project that you are trying to get funding for. So, and I know a lot of people who get, really, really down in the first day if they're not, they don't make it all in one day. And it's like, well, you've got to be able to keep the momentum, and there's strategies that you have to do to, you have to pre-plan the GoFundMe just like you would pre-plan the production.
Absolutely. Did you ever do any of the newer crowd investing model versus crowd donations?
I haven't done the crowd investing model. Because once I was out of Austin and I moved here, the projects that I work on now are a lot of more of your traditional like independent film fundraising, a lot more of like equity fundraising. No, we don't really do any of like the crowd donation or even crowd investment anymore, or it's studios who are paying for it. Just kind of various models
So
now. But
before we get to the studio, I want to talk about
yeah.
Apple TV in just a second. Since you got out from Texas out here to LA,
Hmm.
you've done a few projects where you have raised a little bit of equity.
Yeah. Yeah.
And tell me about that process, because it always seems to be a challenge for people who have never done that before, especially someone just out of film school.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I am very lucky in that I have a producing partner who's been in the industry for a very, very long time, and kind of knows his way around, and knows his way around when things change in the industry, as they often do. But in my experience has been, a lot of what we do is we're putting together a lot of pitch presentations, a lot of decks, a lot of if we don't have a script yet, we definitely have a creator who has their concept and their idea, and then we're going out to independent financiers who are then investing the money, and sometimes if they're a distributor, they're taking, whatever territory they're taking, and then we're also, if we're doing that model, then we then can go out and gather funds from outside the US, other territories, doing it that way in distribution. That model is getting tougher and tougher just because
Yeah.
of the streaming model, because they want to
Yeah.
take worldwide. But it's still being done. And it gets interesting when you have, because you might have a financier who comes in who, puts up a percentage of the budget. You've still got to go make more money, and then you get to a point where like you're almost there, and you need that last financier to put in like the last million or whatever. And it's interesting because that financier almost kind of gets a leverage
Oh,
to get
totally.
what to
Totally.
get what they want out of that
Yeah.
deal. And so I
Last
think
money
that's
in, first money out. I want this term. I want
exactly,
that.
absolutely. And so I'd say that's something to just know going into it. And I don't think people like, I didn't really understand that when until I was kind of in the midst of it. And I was like, oh yeah, like they have a lot of leverage because they're the last piece that you need. They're like the keystone. And so, you have to be thinking about that within all the other deals. Like your deals for this financing becomes like a great big puzzle. So,
Yeah.
um, you definitely want to have like some sort of, lawyer or BA team behind you when you're doing these things as well. If you're doing them, kind of at a certain level, just so you understand like what your waterfall looks like. And so you're not ever in these, breach of contracts, which then can be, thankfully I've never gone through that, but I've heard people who have gone through that, and it's not good. No one wants that.
So the light bulb went off for me, and hopefully it did for some audience members. You said when you got out here, you hooked up with a veteran, experienced producer who knew
Right.
that model. Um, did you just kind of network with him, or how did, because that's what I really encourage first, second time feature folks to do, is hook up with somebody who's already gone through the process.
Yeah, 1,000%. Yeah, when I came out here, I started at Rehab Entertainment as an assistant, and it was a very small, it was me and then John Hyde, who's my producing partner, and then there was a VP of development and production there at the time, who had come out of Legendary, and
Oh, wow.
she actually ended up leaving a few months in, and so then it was just John and I, and so I spent probably 6 to 9 months just kind of listening to him
Wow.
talk
Fly on the
about,
wall.
yeah, just fly on the wall. Like I would be on calls. I would, if I could get into the meeting at that point, I would. It didn't take me very long. He was always very, very much someone who wanted to make sure I had a seat at the table, which is awesome. But yeah, I mean, it was very lucky. I'll be honest. It was a very lucky happenstance that I started working there, just had a really great relationship with this person, who had this extremely, successful career and had done a lot of different things. I mean, from Flight of the Navigator to The Simpsons, so it's just
Yeah.
like live action animation, working with studios, doing independence,
Well,
working for
you put
distribution
yourself
companies.
out there and you got in the room. So congratulations.
Yeah, thank you, thank you.
You never know who you can network with.
No, you never know. And I think, a big part of it was just always saying yes to an opportunity, even though I didn't really know. I mean, I remember when he was like, "Hey, if you really want to take the development production route, like, let's do it. Let's build a slate and let's put projects together." And I was just like, "Okay, let's do it." Like, I had no idea what necessarily all of that would entail. And it was, yeah, was it kind of scary sometimes? Yes, but it was so worth it. Like, sometimes you just got to jump in.
So that leads me to Apple TV. So this is not necessarily the focal point of our show, because we talk about, hey, how do you develop a movie and go
Right.
raise the money and go do it yourself? But you had already done that in Texas,
Hmm.
done a few out here, and then I read you developed and produced 20 episodes of Harriet the Spy for
Hmm.
Apple TV. Like,
Hmm.
tell us how that transition happened, because that's pretty cool.
Yeah, that was an interesting one. So we were pitched the book, Harriet the Spy. We were pitched the project by a company that had, the last time I'd seen Harriet the Spy was the 1998 Nickelodeon movie. And so I thought the rights were with Paramount, Nickelodeon. So when we were pitched the rights to this book, um my mind was kind of blown that it was even available, but it was such a well-known title. I remembered it as a movie that I loved as a kid and as a book that I loved as a kid. um we took it, we loved the pitch. We said, yes, we're interested, let's take it to the Jim Henson Company, because my producing partner is vice chairman of their board.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and so, the Jim Henson Company has this fantastic, reputation and slate of projects that they've been doing for a very long time, and so we felt like we were in great hands, and so we teamed up with them. And then the development process was very much like, what is the heartbeat of this project? What is the heartbeat of this IP? And what has never been done before with it? Because that's going to be sort of the angle that's going to get buyers interested and financiers interested. And so, um, you know, that led us to animation, because it had never been done in animation before. We wanted to take it back to the 1960s where it's originally set, and that would have been too big of a price point for a 6 to 11, TV show that we wanted to do that in New York. So it was
Yeah.
like, how can we do this, and how can we take this character back to her roots as a writer, versus leaning into like the spy of it all, which is usually kind of the approach, because it's a little bit like, for lack of a better word, like sexier. She's a spy and she's got her spy belt and like that's her thing, but it's really about a little girl who wants to be a writer. And so, um with the Jim Henson Company, we went out, we started looking at animation companies, started talking to showrunners, writers in the industry who we knew were going to be perfect for this, kind of show, grounded, but still kind of, it's animation. So you have this new level of what can you do with this character? Like, now you can kind of get into her imagination in a way that you never have before. And how does that work? A little bit like Hey Arnold, which is one of my, favorite
I remember
shows
that.
growing up. Yeah. And so we found the animation company and the showrunner kind of came together at the same time. Um, we had an animation, our animation company ended up being Titmouse, Animation, who does Big Mouth, and just tons of other stuff, and they're wonderful. And so we started working with them to do the initial, concept designs. We ended up getting Will McCrobb to be our showrunner. And with those two pieces in place, we put together a really awesome packet. We went out and started pitching all of the networks.
So before we get to the
Yeah,
pitch, did you
yeah,
just kind of have the concept, like a little teaser? You didn't go out and do like the first episode. You just
right.
had,
Right. We didn't even
okay,
have a teaser. We didn't even get an animation test done. It was all character designs.
like in a deck or
In a
something.
deck, exactly. It was
Okay.
I think it was like a five, it's been so long now since this, I have to go back and look at it. It was like 5 to 7 pages of, the character designs and some background designs that the animation company had done. And then Will McCrobb had written, just text. And we
Okay.
had a graphic designer put that together in a really, cool Harriet the Spy kind of design way.
And then you're going off to the streamers like Apple.
And then we're going off to the streamers with that piece and with Will, who is doing the actual pitching of the story and the her character and what she'll be doing in episodes. And we had, I think we had a season 1 overview. We had a couple of episode examples as part of that pitch.
They call
Um,
that the Bible or something.
right. Yeah,
Yeah.
it was a mini Bible, I think, for us because
Okay.
we didn't quite have everything, because you're always wanting the buyer to financier to feel like they're going to have a hand in it as well. But but then you want them to know that you've got it. You're going to be able to deliver it. You know what you're doing. But there's always a little room of
Yeah.
more, to have a few more people at the table to give ideas. So yes, so that's what we had to go out. And we went out to a lot of different streamers and buyers, and it ended up landing at Apple TV Plus. And Apple TV Plus, their model is they want all rights worldwide, and they pay for it all. And so then it's just a matter of making sure that your budgets are tight, because there's I believe it was like this for Apple too. But for a lot of the streamers now, especially,
They've
if
tightened up their
you're
budgets, right?
they've tightened up their budgets, and if you're under budget, they get that back. And if you're over budget, you have to pay that. So like they give you a certain amount and that's what you have. Use it as much as possible. And make sure that you're really on top of it, because you're going to be the one who has to pay if it goes over.
Yeah.
Um,
Interesting. Well, congratulations for that. That's absolutely huge that you helped develop and produce 20 episodes of a really like historical series now on Apple TV. So
Thank you. Thank you.
so congrats. So before we wrap up here, you have a saying that every once in a while you have this little voice inside your head that tells you you don't belong here.
Yeah.
And I want you to kind of dive deep into that, to not only the journey that you did, which is a little bit different. Everyone's on a different journey, right?
Right.
But especially the people that want to get their first or second feature narrative or documentary done, and they're daunted by the funding. That like that little voice. How do we
Yeah.
overcome that?
Yeah. I'm a big fan of another saying, which is fake it until you become it, which is it's always there's always a part of it that's going to feel daunting. Even if you listen to some of the greatest filmmakers of all time, like they're not always getting their stuff made either. Like, so they're dealing with it too. Like, I think I was reading like M. Night Shyamalan like takes out mortgages on his house to make movies sometimes, before they're really picked up. You're always gonna have that feeling. You just have to know that it's there, and it's your body protecting itself. We are fight or flight, people. It's what we are evolutionarily. And so if you're doing something that's risky, like you're going to start feeling like maybe I shouldn't do this,
Out of your comfort zone.
out of your comfort zone, and you don't want to take the risk and you might lose everything. So, um, just the way that I have approached it is, I just kind of keep forging ahead. Like you just kind of have to keep doing it. And when someone gives you a compliment or says like, wow, you've done amazing things, like let that settle in a little bit, and take the praise, just take the praise and realize like, yes, I did do this. This is awesome. You obviously there's people around me who helped in that, and give them always give them props, but like it's okay to just be like, I did something really, really hard. And I think it helps you to continue doing it because, the next hard things comes around and you're like, I don't think I can do this. And it's like, well, I thought that last time and I did it anyway. And you kind of have to in some, it's like I do a lot of not only, and I'm also, come from an acting background, which is, a lot of rejection when you're putting your whole self out
Oh
there.
yeah.
So it's like, and now with pitching, when I pitch projects, for the first few years that I was out pitching and if a project didn't go, I took it so deeply personally that it would just kind of like kill me inside. I would just be like, why isn't this, working? Like, why wasn't I able to do this? And I think sometimes like you really have to learn how to step away from something and disconnect from it a little bit, in order to move forward with it. Like, okay, this didn't work out. What is my next opportunity? Like if I can't get financing from, this Hollywood way or whatever you want to call it, could I do it a GoFundMe way? Could I do it through, I know so many filmmakers who are finding actors and people who want to produce after they get inheritances and or investments that they've done, and like there are
Happens
people
all
out
the
there who want
time if you
yeah,
ask.
yeah, if you ask and if you're putting yourself out there too, and there are directors that are always putting content out and they're always talking about where it's being distributed, and it's very attractive to someone who has money in their pocket that's like, hey, I want to spend $50,000 on a short film, or I have $50,000. Can we start building financing off that amount of money
Yeah.
and get other people involved?
Just gotta
Um,
ask.
you just have to ask. You
Put
just have
yourself out there.
to put yourself out there. Just, you're going to be faking it sometimes. You're not going to have that, like, you're not going to feel so confident every day to do that. But you have to do it. And I'm still always amazed when like something actually comes through, or like financing comes together, a project comes together, and I look back and I thought, God, I was so scared to like go to that meeting, or I was so nervous getting ready for that meeting. Like there was a part of me that was like, just don't do it. You can't do it. You absolutely can.
Yeah.
You just have to get a handle on your mind, on your brain. Show it
Yeah.
who's boss.
Well, Terissa Kelton, in a very, very short period of time, you've done it so far. I'm sure there's a lot of great things to come. I would love to hear what's your latest project you're working on right now or that's just releasing.
Yeah. So actually the next 10 episodes of Harriet the Spy are coming out May 4th on Apple TV Plus. So the first 10 are out. But the next drop of 10, her last 10 are out May 4th on Apple TV Plus. So and it's technically a kid show, but I know a lot of adults who are very into it. So give it a shot, even if you don't have kids, or watch it with the kids. Because it's a very good co-viewing
It's
television
cool.
show.
Family
Yeah.
friendly for sure.
Exactly. Exactly.
And what's the best way that people can contact or follow you? Your social media coordinates?
Yeah. So my social media, my Instagram, Twitter, Facebook is all Terissa Kelton, just my first and last name handle, no underscores or anything, just Terissa Kelton at Terissa Kelton. I'm also on LinkedIn. I'm not on TikTok yet, but maybe someday. But it's mainly Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram for now, and LinkedIn. So
Cool. Well,
yeah.
Terissa, thank you so much. Any final words of wisdom before we part ways
I
to
think just
people that
biggie.
are getting ready to do their first or second project?
Yeah, I think just be as passionate about the development and the finding the financing as you are as you are of the project itself. Like go into that like go into that financier meeting like you're showing up to your first day of set, your first day of shooting. Just be excited. Show these people that that you're excited. Even if you don't feel like you're confident, you're excited to do it. You want to do this. This is why you're here. So let that be your guide, is your excitement to really be able to get the project off of the ground, and give yourself that pump up you need for whatever meetings you're taking.
Awesome. Terissa Kelton, thank you so much once again. Really appreciate your taking time out of your busy schedule.
Of course. Thank you for having me.
Thanks for listening. And remember, it's time!
There's never been a better time to make your own indie film. And if you have a dream project you're excited about and 100% committed to getting it funded, go to financeyourmovie.com and click on the green telephone button. You'll see our calendar, and if you find an open spot, grab it. You'll get a one-on-one call with me or one of my partners. It will be the best hour you've ever spent getting clarity and strategy towards financing your movie. Thanks for listening, and we'll catch you next week.